Welcome back to this week's episode of the Campfire Series podcast. This is Curtain Call. Today is Thursday, June 11th, 2020. I'm your host, Logan Sofarenko, and it is our 10th episode. We made it, guys. We have a very special guest joining us today from the closed Broadway production of Frozen. Please welcome
Jake David Smith. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I graduated from Elon University in 2019, and I was just in Frozen for about a year before this Broadway shutdown. And the project on the horizon is Between the Lines, a new musical based on the novel by Jodi Picoult, directed by Jeff Calhoun. It was supposed to premiere about a week ago, actually, at Second Stages, and obviously that did not happen, but Jason Gauthier was originally supposed to play the role of Prince Oliver, and he actually ended up getting a HBO TV show, and the producers and everybody were, let him leave the production and do whatnot, and then they had to find a new Prince Oliver, like, very last minute. And I think originally I auditioned and then would start rehearsals like the next week or something like that. That I ended up auditioning for Prince Oliver and getting the role, and it's pretty cool.
So when this shutdown.
But sorry, as of right now.
Go for it.
Everything happened with the Broadway shutdown. And everybody at Between the Lines and everybody at Frozen was kind enough to sort of work out an agreement that I don't have to leave Frozen until we sort of know officially what's going on with Between the Lines. So as of right now, I am currently still in Frozen until, Between the Lines goes up, and then I'm going to leave and pursue that.
Right on. So how did you get Frozen, first of all? You've been in the cast for about a year now. So how did you join the company, and how did you get the part?
Well, Elon University does sort of a different thing than most schools. We do a casting director series as opposed to a showcase. So the senior class fundraises close to $20,000, and then we fly from New York, different agencies and different casting directors from places like Telsey and Stuart Whitley and Roundabout and places like that. And we fly them to Elon, and then we sing and we dance and we act for them. And then we cater a dinner for them at a nearby place, and then sort of talk to them and get to know them. So through that process, I was fortunate enough to get to meet with Rachel Hoffman, who's the casting director for Frozen. And the same weekend Rachel was in town, my agents that I ended up signing with were also visiting the school. And initially, actually, Rachel basically invited me to come audition for a different project, which was Becoming Nancy, and thought that I'd be a good fit for that. Ended up going all the way to the end for that. Didn't go my way, but I got to sort of prove to myself and to Rachel and the people at Telsey that, I meant business. And even though I was young, even though I was only 21, I could be trusted to sort of handle a high stakes audition and callback process and handle myself well. And then, that was definitely in spring. And then early summer, this position in Frozen opened up, and Rachel remembered who I was through the Becoming Nancy process and gave my agents a call and said, hey, we're seeing a bunch of people for this. I think Jake would be a really good fit. What do you think? And I was actually in the middle of finals. And
wow.
I was in the process of auditioning for other things too. And so I actually said, no, I'm sorry, I can't fly to New York to audition for this. It's too last minute. They gave me 2 days notice. It was hey, can Jake be in New York on Thursday? And it was Tuesday. And I was like, I'm sorry, like I have an Italian literature final and like I can't be there. And Rachel Huffman was like, okay, like I can respect that. You know, graduating's important. And then Thursday came and went. And on Friday, she said to my agents, she said, all right, Jay can submit a tape for the role. We just really want to see him. And so I ended up submitting a tape of just the Hans packet, because it was for Ensemble, cover Hans. And once I did the Hans packet, then I had to do a little snippet of my Ensemble track, which is, if you're familiar with Frozen, the song Huga, the really big high note in like the middle of the song, that's
right.
the Ensemble track. So I had to send them a video of just me holding a high A for like 35 seconds.
Woo-hoo.
And that was like the whole video. It was like the whole clip was just like, for 45 seconds, and then it like cut out. It was one of the funniest self-tapes I've ever sent. After that, they invited me to come up to New York and audition for the team. And then I did an in-person at Telsey where I did the Hans packet and I did the Huguenot and I talked to people, and then they invited me to dance the next day. I danced. And this was also all happening on the same day as Mean Girls tour auditions too. So I was in New York auditioning for Mean Girls. They were also seeing me for Frozen, and I had to like work around that schedule. And they contacted me at the very end of the day, and they were like, "What are you doing right now?" I was like, "Nothing. Like, you know, I'm in a coffee shop. I just packed my bags. Like I have to go to JFK at 7 p.m. They're like, great. And my agent was very sweet about it. He was like, well, where are you right now? I said, well, I'm at 34th and 7th. He was like, great. I want you to go over 1 block and then up 10 and then ring the doorbell of the St. James Theater and go get fitted for your costumes because you're going to be in Frozen. And I like freaked out. So I ran in and I told the people, I was like, hi, like I'm Jake, apparently, I'm going to be in this show now and I need to get a fitting. And the stage manager like walked me through. I'd never even been backstage at a Broadway show. Like I'd never done any of that. Dang. They rushed me to the wigs department, did a cast of my head. And like, you know, the stage manager was like, this is Jake. He has to leave in 45 minutes. Go. And then so I had like the most crazy fitting process ever. They like took me into Ross Lee Kite's station and had me try on a bunch of his costumes because he's who I was replacing. Right. I've since gotten to know him. He's an awesome guy and we get along and it was all fun. But I was like trying on the strangers' costumes and wig and everything and trying to like, they were trying to see like, you know, I wasn't going to be back in New York City for any fittings or anything until May 28th. And then I was going to be in the show 2.5 weeks later. So they didn't have a lot of time with me present. And so they were doing a lot of fittings and stuff. And then they shipped me out. I caught a cab outside this door of the St. James and like drove to the airport to fly to Elon, North Carolina. And I was like just grinning from ear to ear the whole time in the cab on the way to the airport. And I was like, I think I'm going to be in a Broadway show. It was the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. With that whole process, when you flew back to Elon, were you even thinking like, what am I going to do about the Mean Girls audition? Like, was I even worried about that? Or was it just constantly like, oh, I'm going to be in a Broadway show. I better start preparing after graduation?
Well, they had actually, because Mean Girls and Frozen were cast by Telsey, okay. Like my agents had been on the phone with them all day. They were like, look, like we have an opportunity with Frozen. We need to know if he's still in the running for Aaron, like on the tour. And like, you know, 45 minutes after my Mean Girls audition, they were like, you know, Jake's great, but it's going to go in a different direction. So go ahead and pursue the Frozen thing. Like you have our blessing. So 45 minutes after that, I got the call that was Frozen. So it was a very hot and cold day. They're like, you're not going to be Aaron, unfortunately. Like, it's a bummer. And I was like, oh man. And they were like, but you're going to make your Broadway debut in a month. I was like, you win some, you lose some.
No, so you made your debut a month from that whole fitting. It was a little bit a month after that.
Give or take. I think it was like a month and a half or something like that. I think. Yeah, it was. I think it was like a month and a week and a half. Or I don't know. I don't know the exact dates, but it was pretty quick. Yeah.
What was the whole process like? Oh, I have to move to New York, like finding an apartment and all that stuff. Like, what was that whole process like, knowing that you're gonna have to make that move after graduation?
Um, it was really difficult. A lot of my classmates were talking to me, and obviously, like everybody's really excited, and everybody is, of the impression that I've won the lottery. And I of course, feel the same way. How many people get to walk onto a Broadway stage right after graduating college? But honestly, like I was mortally terrified. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I have to just start my adult life immediately preceding graduation. Like I thought I was gonna go home and hang out with my dog for a little bit before I like start this adventure. Or um, I was really fortunate in that I had a friend who had graduated a year before me, who booked a job on the Book of Mormon national tour and needed to fill his room in New York City for 1 year. And so he was close enough to me where I just texted him sort of before I had signed the contract for Frozen and was like, hi, what's up? I need you to save your room for me. And he was like, what did you book? And obviously like I had to be PC and like be like, I'll tell you in a little bit, but like odds are like I'm gonna need a room in New York City. And I'm gonna need it long term. And that made him happy because usually the New York apartment hustle is pretty difficult in finding people long term if you're gonna not be in your apartment. And so his first day of rehearsal was also my first day of rehearsal. So I literally got handed my degree on stage at Elon, drove home to Virginia, packed and repacked, then drove to New York and moved myself into Steven's room and moved Steven out of his room and in a car to go to Philadelphia to join the Book of Mormon national tour. It's like this whole process was just like, serendipity at its finest. It was like everything happened exactly the way it needed to happen for me to make it to opening or to my debut, to my opening night of Frozen smoothly. And it was a huge blessing.
Now, I've always wondered this for people that get cast and put into a show while it's already running. How does that whole rehearsal process go? Especially because you were covering two tracks, the ensemble, and you were covering Hans's track. So, what was that whole rehearsal process like? Was it with the whole cast? Was it just you? Like, how did that whole thing go?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to have another person join me in my rehearsal process. Two ensemble members were leaving Frozen at the same time. And then two of us were entering on the same day. So I had a girl, Kajay Fellows Johnson, in her ensemble track rehearsing with me. But that being said, it was me, Kajay, and our dance captain, Ashley, in a rehearsal studio, like in Ripley Greer. And sometimes we were lucky enough to get on stage so we could actually like feel out our spacing and where everything was supposed to be. But I only really got to rehearse the show one time with the full cast in my costumes, and then it was opening night. So the rehearsal process was about 2 weeks of dance studio with just me and Ashley, or
How
me,
long were those
Kajay,
hours?
and Ashley. It was normally like noon to 5 every day, something like that. So it's about five straight hours a day of just like dancing. I think I had one 1 hour music rehearsal where like I voice memoed Matt Eisenstein, one of our music people, playing through the whole score and like plonking my harmony line. And I like had it on a voice memo, and like that was my rehearsal process, and I was like totally responsible for learning that on my own. And then the choreography was up to Ashley and our assistant dance captain Jeff to teach me. So luckily I was able to have some swings with me to rehearse and everything like that. But it's about 2 weeks of just like dancing and singing with a piano and a dance captain in a gray room. And then you get what's called a put-in. And this is whether you're a principal or an ensemble member, when you enter a running show, you do what's called a put-in, and you are the only person on stage normally in costumes, hair, makeup, microphone, whatever it is. And you are in your full costume, and everybody else is in just like sweatshirt, sweatpants, rehearsal clothes. And you have to go through the whole show like as if there is a Broadway audience in the audience, and everybody else is sort of there to be in the right spot at the right time, but they don't have to like perform, they mark. And so you kind of feel like a lunatic because no one else is singing as loud as you are, and no one is dancing as hard as you are, and you do the whole show. They give you some notes, and then usually you wait a weekend, so you do that on a Friday, and then you go into the show on a Tuesday. Our schedule, for some reason, was Friday put-in, 1 hour break, Friday night debut. So I had like an hour between my put-in, all of the notes that they gave me, and then they were like, also good luck, you're in the show tonight.
Wow.
So that was, luckily I had planned for that. Like I had known that was the schedule. Sometimes that gets sprung on people last minute. But yeah, that's the process. It's about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks if you're lucky. And it's very isolated until that put-in day. And, you know, on put-in day, you bring everybody donuts or bagels or something to thank them for coming in and helping you rehearse.
So then once you started performing, what was life like in the St. James Theater? I love that theater. That's a beautiful theater. What's it like performing in that space?
I mean, it's just so cool knowing all the history in that building with Oklahoma and everything like that. You know, just graduating college, taking music theater history, learning about the history of Broadway and everything like that. And also getting to work with some like really cool people who I kind of grew up like listening to on cast albums, like Patty Murin and Casey Levy. You know, getting to do a show every night, hearing Casey Levy sing "Let It Go" is like, it's unreal. You know, I had a bunch of friends that were like, haha, you have to listen to "Let It Go" like every single night, you know, for the rest of whatever time you're in the show. How's that feel? And I was like, no. I don't have to listen to "Let It Go." I get to listen to Casey Levy kill it every night. Like, she's amazing. Yeah, I want to listen to it. Like, you would too if you came. So, you know.
Yeah.
And then after the debut, I almost immediately started understudy rehearsals to learn Hans, because those first 2 weeks are just your ensemble responsibilities so that they can, you know, put together a working show. And then every Broadway cast normally has 2 people responsible for covering a role. So I was, you know, second in the building, you know, covering Hans. The other person was Zach, another ensemble guy who'd been with the show since the beginning, who already knew the track. So they weren't like, you know, scrambling to get me to learn Hans so that they were covered if Joe Carroll got sick. So I immediately started rehearsing, and it's really cool to see Broadway behind the scenes as a new person, because, you know, it's like, it's their day job. Everyone shows up. It's not a big deal. Like, they go there, they do their show, they go home. And that's, you know, the Grubhub guy like comes to the stage door and has the chicken pad thai for whoever was like running late and didn't get to eat their dinner or whatever. Or, you know, guys are coming from the gym, they're showering in the dressing room shower, and they're like getting ready. You know, there's guys who wait until 5 minutes to places to get ready. There's people who are ready at half hour. It's like, it's your typical
What guy
dressing
are
room
you? Are you
situation. And
do you get ready at half hour, or do you get ready at 5 till?
I'm like a slow and steady wins the race kind of guy. Like at half hour, I have my wig call, so I have to like pin my mic in and like go put my wig caps on and go, because everybody in the show wears wigs. And I have to go get my wig on at half hour call. So I have to get to the theater like 5 minutes earlier than most people. And then I do all of that, get ready, go downstairs. And then I have my wig on and I kind of like go up and I visit the swing dressing room where the standbys and the swings are. And I say hi. And then I come downstairs and I'm in my dressing room and I'm hanging out. I'm on my phone or I'm talking to the guys. And then they're like 15 to places. And I'm like, okay, now I need to like start thinking about getting in costume. And then when they call 5, if I'm still not in costume, I sort of like sprint to get into costume, because it's the Norwegian winter costume or whatever, and I'm in like 2 pairs of socks, boots, pants, suspenders, vest, like big puffy shirt. I'm like, I've got like 6 pieces to put on, and I got to be smart about that. I don't want to be late to places.
So when an ensemble member, like when you're doing your ensemble track one night and like you're scheduled to do your ensemble track and you get sick and you can't perform, who takes your track? Is that when like the swings go in?
Yeah, that would be when a swing would step in. So every Broadway company has swings, and swings are allowed by the union. They can learn up to 10 tracks.
Wow.
If they know more than 10 ensemble tracks, then they get a bump in pay. But I mean, those people are superhuman. They have brains like computers. They just know where everybody is on stage all the time. I have so much respect for swings. And for anybody who might not know listening, like a swing is basically an ensemble member who knows every single ensemble track, every single person's job in the show. And they wait upstairs on the 7th floor. They do not perform every night. And if somebody in the ensemble gets sick or calls out, then one of the swings will go down and get into costume and get ready. We've had people go on in the middle of a show because of an injury or because of sickness. We've had people go on at 5 minutes because maybe somebody didn't show up, or there's so many crazy things that have happened. We've had principals call out mid-show because they injure themselves, and an ensemble member has to go on and take over that principal track, and then the swing has to come on and take over an ensemble track, and it's all one giant machine with cogs and gears and everything that is really efficient, and it's cool to watch backstage.
So when it comes to like the life, excuse me, when it comes to like the life of a Broadway performer, everyone wants to have that life, whether it's tour or professional or Broadway or any kind of like high caliber. You perform 8 times a week. Like that obviously is taxing. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you, obviously covering 2 tracks, keep your mental health like in check and have time for yourself and just rest? Like, how do you handle 8 shows a week?
One thing that I've found like super duper important is prioritizing recovery. Of course, being on Broadway is an awesome thing, and it's fun to celebrate. It's fun to go out with friends, and it's fun to get a drink after the show, or it's fun to go hang out at a friend's house and, watch the game or whatever. But you have to remember that like, your body is your livelihood when you're on Broadway performing 8 times a week, and you have to like prioritize and allow time for recovery. So like I make sure that I get enough sleep all the time. I warm up when I shower in the morning. I warm up my voice, and then something I do personally is I exercise a lot as a way to sort of make sure that I'm doing other things other than just the show's choreography, and I'm taking care of my body, and I'm making sure that I can withstand climbing 7 flights of stairs like 4 times during the course of the show, and dancing and jumping and lifting girls and, carrying them across the stage. And all kinds of stuff like that. You really have to take care of your body and prioritize that. So it might mean, not getting margaritas with your friends and just enjoying, your nachos. And it might mean taking a night in if you're hoarse, if you sung a lot that week, if you've had a lot of auditions or if you've had a lot of rehearsals and that you're vocally pretty tired, it's making that hard decision to go home and to rest your voice and not hang out with your friends or do something like that.
For the people I've talked to so far, they've said like getting drinks after the show. Is that like a common thing that you guys do after shows, like at like almost midnight? Like you guys have that energy?
Well, funny enough, the Broadway performer is almost nocturnal. It's really funny. I had a professor explain this to me in college, and I didn't really understand it until I started living this life. It's like most people go to work, or go to school like 9 to 5. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is when you have to be 100% the most alert human being that you are. When you're on Broadway, it's like 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. is like your time when you are the most alert, awake human being that you can be. It's because you're performing. You're more than regular. You are superhuman, if anything, because you have to like be alive. You have to be so alive. You have to communicate. You have to be expressive. All of those things. And so it actually takes a while to like come down from that energy after the show. Obviously, you're very physically tired after performing a musical, but like if I were to go straight home and, get under my covers and try to sleep right after performing, I'd just stare at the ceiling for like 3 hours. So I go to bed fairly late and I wake up fairly late. And, it's not, I get to wake up every day at like 10 or 11, but it's not because I'm sleeping in. It's because that's what's necessary for me to, do my job. So people hang out after the shows, and people hang out in our dressing rooms after the show, and we all talk. And a lot of the time, my friends who are not working on Broadway, that like the only time I have to hang out with them is sort of late at night after I get out of a show. So I have a long-standing tradition of my two buddies and I go to Buffalo Wild Wings on 47th Street after my show on like a Sunday. Because we used to do that when
all our high school theater kids out there that go to Buffalo Wild Wings after their shows. Even Broadway actors do it.
Heck yeah, man. Love some B-dubs. But yeah, like it going out after the show is fairly commonplace because it takes a while to come down from that energy and, bowing and the applause of 1,700 people all clapping and screaming. And, mentally you're like amped when you feel that energy. So it's hard to go home and go straight to bed.
For sure. I got 2 more questions that I'll let you go. Here's one that I've been looking forward to hear from you. So stage door, for the people who don't know what stage door is when, the audience gets to meet the actors after the show and, sign playbills and take pictures, all that stuff. What has been your funniest like stage door story?
This is Frozen in specifically?
It can be Frozen.
I've had a couple.
Whichever one is like stuck with you the most.
Well, obviously, the very first time I ever got to play Hans on Broadway, I had a bunch of my friends come support me, and they got to come backstage and hang out with me on stage. And I was like talking to them, and then I was like, oh yeah, like I was a principal today. I should go out and like sign playbills. I should go do that. And so one of my friends snuck their phone and took a video of me exiting the stage door. And then like the first time sort of people like recognized who I was, what I had done in the show, and started cheering as I like left the stage door to go out to the little barricade to sign playbills. Like that was a really, really cool moment. Like I remember doing that at once, you know, trying to get Paul Alexander Nolan's signature. And I remember doing it at like Les Mis, trying to get Ramin Karim's signature. And, you know, now somebody was like sitting there waiting to get my signature. And that was a huge full circle moment. But by far, I can't say it's any one single moment, but when the little kids are scared to talk to you because you just played Hans.
Right.
Or they're like, why would you mean to Elsa? And you're like, I promise, like, I'm a really nice person in real life. Like, hi, I'm Jake, I'll sign your playbill. And the parents are all laughing. They're like, do you want a picture with him? And they're like, no. And they're like cowering their face in their dad's jacket because they're like scared of the big bad Hans. That's definitely like one of the funniest things is like trying to like when you go out, Joe Carroll does this too, and Zach and Anthony, who's one of our Hans covers now too. We all talk about like how funny it is when like, you know, you go out and people are a little less excited to see you than they are to see like Kristoff or any of the other characters because you were like, you know, you just went downhill at the beginning of Act 2. Like it's just, you get worse and worse and meaner. And then by the end, everybody sort of like wants to boo by the time you bow. It's really fun to know that you left a lasting impression when you were on stage. You know, you did your job right if people are a little scared when they see you in the stage door.
For sure. My sister did Frozen this year, so the fact that you're coming on telling me a little bit about these stories really means a lot to her, and it means a lot to me hearing all this cool stuff. And you know, I didn't know how the process went for like put-in rehearsals. So thank you for sharing that with me and sharing that with, you know, everyone that listens to it. Let me just like before I wrap up, like I am starting this podcast because are you familiar with the Jimmy Awards?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the Jimmy Awards, they were canceled this year. So a lot of high school actors and a lot of actors that were going to go, when you go, you get to hear from, you know, working professionals. So I'm trying to get as many professionals as I can and hearing all these stories. And let me just say, you gave me a lot of awesome stuff today. And I really appreciate you coming on and taking some time out of your day. And sorry about the confusion for like the delay and stuff, but you know, things are hectic right now. But I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope that you know you and your family stay safe. And what's going to happen when this whole thing is over? You're going back to Frozen, correct?
Yeah. So as of right now, I'm going back to Frozen, and I'd like to say back, like I've really enjoyed the show, and thanks for having me on. And I think what you're doing here is really cool, especially if it's geared towards sort of making up for the lack of the Jimmy Awards this year and sort of finding a niche audience with those kids who need to hear some of this stuff. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, as of right now, Between the Lines is set for spring 2021. So if Frozen decides to open at any point before spring 2021, I'll be strapping back into my lackey boots and following around the Duke of Wesselton at the St. James.
Nice. So you're going to be is it going to be Hans only, or is it going to be your same cover ensemble and understudy of Hans?
It's going to be same ensemble cover Hans. My ensemble track is one of the Duke of Wesselton's guards.
Right on.
Always has two really tall guys standing behind him to make him look short. Like
how tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
Right on.
So they like to put like a big dude standing behind the Duke of Wesselton in these tracks. And funny enough, both of us are the covers for Hans. So both of the guards standing behind him are the covers for Hans. It's really fun.
That's awesome. Well, good luck with everything. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. You know, keep finding happiness, you know, through this, even though it's a weird time. It was really nice talking to you, everyone. Mr. Jake Smith, for coming on and telling us all the stories. You're the man. Take care, and sending lots of love to, I guess, both of your companies, you know, Frozen. Yeah.
Thanks, man. It was really awesome. Glad to make it on and share a little bit.
No, for sure. It was nice meeting you. Take care.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, please tune in every Wednesday and every Thursday for all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Feel free to like and subscribe to us on YouTube, and also to give us a rating and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you every week on Wednesday and Thursday. We got some exciting guests coming up. But right here at Campfire Series Podcast, this is Logan Safranco signing off.